I'll do my math assignment tomorrow. Although, to be frank, playing Etrian Odyssey isn't exactly what I want to be doing this night before I go to sleep either, but thanks to me working on a project, I looked through some of my older drawings, heard some of my older music, and even played a bit of my older games, and it's actually got me in a bit of a mood. Unfortunately, I'm much too tired to do anything with my creative desires, or more accurately, impulses, so playing Etrian Odyssey is the next best thing, I say. To live and love the best thing. To love the next best thing. Okie dokie, so I'm not resetting my level since it's another waste of time and resources and all that good stuff. Although, maybe I should have still kept the save just in case. I decided I want to actually get the extra skill points, but I don't know. For now, I think I'll prioritize exploring the dungeon over doing the quests. Oh yeah, let's talk to everyone. Ah, I guess there's nothing new. Alright, let's start by just equipping our favorite party, why not? I really don't think Vale will cut it. She's strong. But right now what I want from a team is a nice healthy mix of both offense and defense. And sadly, such a team does not include Vale. I could probably take Iya instead of Alma. Luvolby and Teosur are good damage dealers. Iya can become a support just like Mara. 2 offenders, 1 defender, and then 2 supports. I think that's like the best party composition if you're only thinking of balance. Although between Luvolby and Alma, which one do I prefer? Luvolby has some more AoE utility, and she's a one-hit, one-done thing, and she does still provide some utility with her Berserker Howl. And I forgot what subclass I gave her. Ah yeah, Ninja. But she really doesn't do much with that subclass, doesn't she? Alma prefers quantity over quality, but she's way more selfish compared to Luvolby. But if I level her up some more, she could get some nice utility bonuses as well with the gun skills. I'll stick to Lovodi. I want 2 healers. Technically 3. Mara can also heal. Alright, next up, I wanna get everyone equipment. I'm gonna take out all the coupons and spend them all. The charms are way more useful than I give them credit for. If I used them, I could probably handle, but they're for charms. Accessories are for very specific niche uses, which means if you want to do your best, you need to equip accessories, which is a big pain in the ass. That means you gotta change everyone's equipment for in preparation, and you know. And most likely you'd use it for beating up bosses rather than for... I'll start with equipment. I don't really think the damage increase is significant enough to justify the change. I think this might be worth it. Ooh. This could be useful. Sure. Iron Tusk. Looks like I'm gonna have to deal with everyone not having elements by default. That sucks. But with Mara around, that shouldn't be a big problem. Honestly, it might be a net negative for me to continue playing that way. Carbide armor can only be worn by... A little boost helps a lot. Yep. Yeah, she can go without TP. She should go for more defense, I think. Oh, but the tech loss. I can live with it. It's literally named after a class, wow. Let's get this for V3 and... Oh wait, V3 can't equip shields. Oh, time for the helmets. Ugh. When she can stand to be a bit more defensive. I'll give her Paralyze. Anti-Paralyze. She doesn't need any extra TP, she already has so much. You know what? Jeez. Let's try these out. What can we get though? Sure. I think these three should still just focus more on their defense. About you though, you should have some resistance. Well, the speed literally does nothing. Or maybe it does, it's just allowing for preemptive strikes. I wonder how accurate that description is. I'll try it. I'll go for Devil's Snare first before Devil's Candle.
Hello everyone, my name is Pixelriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you're all having a good day. In today's episode, we're going to do a bit of a flying lesson since we've just acquired Elytra in our previous episode. We've got these wings on our backs now, and I think it's important to know before you start flinging yourself around the sky of your Minecraft world how to control them, how to take off safely, how to land safely, how to fly around in style, and how Elytra can help you get into some places which you couldn't before without special equipment. So without further ado, we're going to grab some emeralds and a book, and we're going to head over to my mending villager, because the first thing you need to learn is how to take care of these things, and that is going to come in the form of making sure your Elytra has unbreaking and mending. Because as I mentioned in the previous video, each second you fly with your Elytra decreases the durability on your Elytra by 1 point. So mending is going to be pretty much essential to make sure that the wings don't end up breaking. We've got to have that so that we can repair them, and unbreaking, if we have it, I believe I have an unbreaking 3 back at my base. Unbreaking 3 is effectively going to make sure that 3 out of 4 times our Elytra might lose durability. It doesn't, so the Elytra can potentially last 4 times as long.
Oh, sure, I forgot to get off, sorry.
So we can
I'll get next level.
XP, it's important to mend them as infrequently as possible to get the most out of them. So we're going to be enchanting our elytra with both mending and unbreaking, which you can't do in an enchantment table, unfortunately. You can only do that using a book, but unbreaking and mending are the only enchantments that really apply to elytra. If you don't have any mending books yet, however, there is still hope for you, because if you look in one of these hoppers, there we go, that's where I left them. Phantom membranes are actually the repair material for elytra. So when you've stayed up late and killed a couple of phantoms, keep hold of the phantom membrane in case you need to do any emergency repairs. This is only really a short-term solution though, since the cost for repairing an item like this will go up every time you make a repair, and elytra durability wears out pretty fast. They only have 432 durability, they can't be upgraded to increase the durability, there is no netherite elytra or anything, so despite the fact that it's an additional expense here, mending is going to make sure that our elytra permanently stays durable. Oh, and there goes my anvil. Yep, so we're going to have to make another one of those. As I mentioned in the previous episode, if your elytra does run out of durability, you don't have to worry about it disappearing from your inventory the way that your tools do. Instead, the wings will simply become tattered, you'll be unable to fly with them.
Apparently, if you fight long enough in this floor, there is a guy that will show up.
So you can always return, repair,
and that's the only way you can fight the foe in this floor.
XP, provided, of course, that you haven't
So that's a lot of fun.
And died full damage somewhere. So that's another thing to be concerned about. Keeping an eye on the durability of your elytra while you're flying around is important. So that's the safety briefing part out of the way. Now let's get on to how we actually use these things. We're going to start off
Lugobi does require her party support. That I say that she has, unlike Alma, who is just strong on her own without any need for setup.
From the back of my storage building here, I can kind of jump up onto the side. Maybe we'll knock out a couple of blocks here so that we can get over towards the front. And from over here, we have a slightly steeper drop in front of us. So that's the perfect place to learn to use our wings. If you simply jump off of this, you're going to fall the way you normally do. The trick to activating your elytra is to press jump a second time while you're in mid-air. So I'm going to jump off the top of this, press the spacebar, and I start gliding. Now, as you point yourself downwards towards the ground, you'll pick up some speed but lose height. Turning in the air decreases any acceleration you might have had, and is usually the key to a safe landing. Because if you simply point yourself downwards at the ground, you're going to accelerate the entire way, and you're going to take some fall damage pretty quickly. The speed at which you are traveling increases the amount of damage you take, and falling wearing a set of wings is still falling. So that's something to bear in mind. You need to make sure that you are slowing down as you come to land to make a safe landing. So that's the gliding part pretty much covered. The next thing we need to do is talk about flying, and for that we're going to need to make some firework rockets, and I'll need to remember where I've stacked them.
This battle music is really intense. It's like every normal encounter is a final boss
over to my
or something.
sugarcane farm where we should have plenty of sugarcane ready to be made into paper. Now, we made fireworks in the past. We've made them in connection with crossbows, being able to use explosive fireworks as a weapon. The key to elytra flight using fireworks is to not make the explosive kind of fireworks. Flight rockets are simply made by turning a bunch of sugarcane into paper and combining paper and gunpowder in a crafting interface. These have a flight duration of 1, but you'll notice they don't have any kind of firework star effect. Firework stars are the ones that you make with gunpowder and any sort of dye, and then adding that to the rocket crafting recipe with gunpowder and paper produces an explosive rocket. But those will damage you if you use them to fly around. And you'll notice that the firework rockets I've crafted have a flight duration of 1. There is a way you can make rockets with a slightly longer flight duration, which simply increases the amount of time they boost you through the air before you're just left to glide from that point onwards. To make each of those types of fireworks, we simply need to increase the amount of gunpowder we add to the firework recipe. So in this case, adding 2 gunpowder gives you a flight duration of 2, adding 3 gunpowder gives you a flight duration of 3, and that is where any increase of flight duration ends. You can't make a flight duration 6 or 7 rockets, it's not possible. I recommend starting with flight duration 1 simply because they are the most versatile. You might want to increase the flight duration of your rockets once you have an adequate supply of gunpowder, but sometimes those longer boost durations can be more of a hindrance than an advantage. Either way, our takeoff from the roof of the storage building is now going to look very different, because once we open our wings, we can right-click to use a firework rocket from our hotbar, and that will boost us into the air. So we're going to leap from this.
Now that's a lot of damage.
And now we are flying. Now we're able to consume these rockets to gain additional height by boosting
An
ourselves
adventurer
upwards,
got
or
to
even
tell
gain
me
additional
how to
downward
get the
speed
secrets,
by
huh?
boosting ourselves downwards, although that is just going to increase the duration that you can glide. Once you reach maximum velocity,
let me explore this place a bit more.
increase your speed any further. But that is really quite a rush, and you can gain a little bit of extra height for a smooth landing. I'll land up here on the sharing trains, and from here you will note that your perspective on the world is really going to change, because suddenly you'll be looking at things from the top down a lot more. It is really quite cool seeing these buildings from the top, when most of the time I've been looking at them from ground level. Now you'll notice that right there, from the top of that tree, I did a very quick takeoff. I didn't need to leap off the side of the tree, I simply rocketed into the air. And you can't do that just by right-clicking. Instead, you need to double-tap the spacebar so you very quickly open your elytra. It might take a little while to get the timing right on maneuvers like that, but it is a lot more generous than it used to be. It used to be you could only activate your elytra when you were falling, so when you were coming down from a jump. But in this case, you can basically double tap.
Yeah, Supernova's OP, I just need to spam it and then I win.
And you'll be able to take off from a flying
Honestly.
position like that very easily. It's just a very quick combination of double tap jump and then a right click to use the firework. It's really quite smooth once you get the hang of it. But now we're able to boost ourselves with firework rockets, we also need to be aware of one of the other dangers of flying around like this, which is taking damage on a wall. You can splat headfirst into the side of a wall and you will take a pretty decent amount of damage, equivalent to falling from a reasonable height. I took 5 hearts of damage there, and that's with protection on my leggings and my helmet, along with blast protection, which doesn't really make much difference on my netherite boots. But in this case, when I'm traveling horizontally like that instead of falling, feather falling is not going to do much.
Curse is perhaps the
Without
worst
my armor protecting me, I almost
ailment
certainly
they could
would have died
inflict,
and
though.
splatting my head against the side
Oh,
of the
of
mountain.
course.
So it's really important to know that hitting a wall whilst you're flying can cause damage that way. And if you are killed by an impact
You know
like
what?
that, the
Yeah,
game
I'm
will
gonna
do a death
I'm
message that
gonna
says
just
you've
draw the
experienced
walls.
kinetic energy, which I've always found pretty funny. But now we're able to fly using firework rockets. That opens up a lot of opportunities for exploration. If I want to see what's on the other side of this mountain, it's only going to take me a firework rocket or two to boost myself over the top, glide down the opposite side, and see what's over here. And I can shift my perspective around using the F5 button by default, or in my case I have it bound to R, and I can really see the landscape around here. And naturally, seeing a kind of bird's eye view of the world is going to be really useful for locating landmarks, like this village, which I actually had no idea was here until I went looking for a pillager outpost recently. The pillager outpost search would have gone a lot faster had I been able to fly around with elytra at the time. You can also challenge yourself to get maneuverable with your elytra and navigate around in tight spaces like caves. Like here, I can weave in and out of the pillars of this cave, perhaps not too successfully in that case, but in Java Edition at least, I'm not sure of the status of this on Bedrock Edition, when you hit the water, your wings will remain open, which makes it kind of awkward. You're bobbing along the water like this in first person, but if you go to third person, you'll notice your wings are still open, which means technically you're still in flight mode, and you can simply use a rocket to boost yourself from the surface of the water again. And knowing how to do a water takeoff like this will actually be a really valuable skill if you're exploring large areas of ocean. In fact, the only times your wings will deactivate underwater is if you come to rest on a solid block, at which point you'll resume the upright standing position, and to take off from the water again, you will need to jump from the surface of the water and be able to open your wings by tapping the jump button like so, which can be a little bit tricky to get at first glance, but with a little practice and some spam clicking, you might be able to manage it. Let's have another go at this cave run here. There we go, I can boost myself around the pillars, just do that quick reaction to where the obstacles are left and right with the mouse, and we should be able to navigate between these with relative ease. You can make some pretty sharp turns with the elytra as well, so you can, depending on your mouse sensitivity, turn on the dime in midair and redirect yourself, which once again loses a lot of momentum, so you'll need to rely on some downward momentum, some gliding downwards in order to become
The death pumpkin
or
immune to
alternatively,
death.
boost yourself with a firework again. At this point, when we don't have a reliable source of gunpowder, all of the gunpowder I've acquired so far has simply been from manually killing creepers, usually with a looting sword, so we get extra gunpowder. But you'll want to conserve the amount of rockets that you use. You probably don't want to fly around spamming rockets constantly, which you can do. There is no cooldown on using them. So what I recommend doing is using one firework simply to gain height, and then allowing yourself to glide around. You'll get plenty of momentum from simply gliding downwards and then tilting your wings back upwards to gain a little bit of height, and you can prolong a glide for a really long time and travel the same distance. You won't be moving quite as fast, but you should be able to get away with not using too many fireworks if you are sensible about how you use your glide. Tilt yourself upwards a little bit and don't boost with a firework unless you need to gain height. At some point next week we will probably be building a mob farm that can spawn all kinds of regular hostile mobs, and so we'll probably get plenty of gunpowder from creepers that spawn in that farm. But for the moment we don't have that in our world yet, so we're going to wait a little while and not use these fireworks too frequently. Now, if we want an alternative to boosting ourselves with fireworks, we can turn back to the Riptide Trident that I made in a previous episode, because with this, we're able to boost ourselves into the air without relying on consumable things like fireworks. It's not raining right now, so we can't take full advantage of the Trident's capabilities, but all we need to do is find a source of water that I can stand in, like the little pool of water that I've been using whenever I need
so I'm
an additional
facing
water buff.
this way.
If we simply raise our
If I
Trident to
turn
the air,
right,
hold down right click
that
and
should be
boost
left.
ourselves, while we're in the air we can open up our wings and you'll be able to glide from there. So the waterfalls on the
I think
mountain here are
drawing
actually going to be really useful
with the yellow
because
task way
standing
more
in one of
convenient.
those and with my wings open I can boost myself into the air with the Trident. And of course the Trident has unbreaking and bending on it as well, so it's effectively a renewable source of this boost power. We can find any other water
Yes, I didn't
sources that we might
expect
be able to
this.
spot along the way, and if we want to, we can get another boost into the air, like so, open up our wings, and we are flying once again. Dip into the water here at our fishing shack, we can boost from underneath the surface even, and you'll notice that if your wings are already open, you get a pretty massive increase in height. The angle at which you take off is also quite important, because you'll probably lose height quite quickly if you go straight up in the air. Let's say, for example, I look straight up from this waterfall on the mountain. Then I should be able to get a decent amount of height, but then my glide is very slow to start, and I don't get a huge amount of acceleration from it. Meanwhile, if I start in roughly the same spot, but I angle myself maybe about 45 degrees upwards like so, there we go. The forward momentum really helps with the glide, and at this point I should be able to travel a lot further because I'm not having to react to the height I'm at and increase my glide angle from there. I am actually hoping that it rains at some point during this video though. For once I want it to rain, because where this really comes into its own is when rain starts and you can use Riptide from basically anywhere standing on the ground. In the rain, the Trident and Elytra combination really becomes the fastest way to travel around. It is absurd how quick you can get, to the point where chunks of your world may not even be able to load in front of you because of how fast you are traveling, which presents other problems, especially when there are mountains around you. But you'll notice that from all of this flying around, my Elytra has now taken about a third or maybe a quarter of its durability. It's pretty beat up at this stage. It's definitely going to be usable for the next little while, but we should be careful about how we use it. Of course, that problem goes away more or less immediately if we trade with some of our villagers here, because if we buy some golden carrots from this guy, we're going to get a bunch of XP, and there we go, the Elytra is almost back to full. Now, another thing to know about the Elytra is that the angle at which you are flying changes the height of your hitbox. If I go into third person mode here and hit F3 and B to enable hitboxes, you'll notice that right now my hitbox is a single block wide and 2 blocks tall. When I go into flight mode, however, we effectively become a single block cube. So the height of our hitbox actually decreases by 1 block. And that means that with precision, we can fit through 1 block gaps like this, whilst in flight mode with Elytra. So we're going to give this a try. We're going to back up a little bit, give ourselves a little run up, and we're going to boost ourselves at that hole in the stone ring that I've made, and see if we can get through it. Oh, no. Okay, I managed to hit the top there. Let's try that one more time, aiming for the center, and there we go. We passed through second try.
Endgame
Not
should
too
be
bad.
long
With
and
enough
hard
practice
and
and little skill, that might
stuff.
allow you to get out of some really tight situations. So it is a skill that is worth bearing in mind. Here's another thing to note while getting out of tight situations, is that very often you might find yourself in a cave environment where there are mobs surrounding you on all sides. Let's say down here in this dripstone cave where the deep dark environment is a little bit further down. Chances are around here I'm going to encounter a couple of mobs that are going to come for me pretty quickly. There's a creeper stepping down from these dripstone spikes, and if I need to, this
The
creeper
fact
can
that
get
the
a little bit
pitfalls
closer,
are
but all I'm
invisible,
going to
like,
do is make a quick
why?
takeoff, like so, and you
Who
can get
thought
out of
that
the
was
harm's way
fun
pretty
game
quickly. If you've been digging
design?
down for whatever reason, or you pillar up and you can see the sky, it's possible to escape from a one-block wide hole like this simply by looking up, double jumping, and activating your fireworks. And if you are descending into a one-block wide hole, or dropping any distance really, the Elytra can help you out, because if you are gliding and facing horizontally, despite the fact that it looks really weird when you're in third-person mode, because most of your player model is effectively in the wall, it's actually possible to descend at a slow enough rate that you're not going to take any full damage once you land. That can be really useful in the case of things like the skeleton spawner we set up earlier in the season, which is a lot faster to get to by flying there, it turns out. But right here we have a hole in the ground where previously I've just been falling into a water source right at the bottom there. You can kind of see it, this little blue square at the bottom there. And the ladder has been our best way of getting up here. We could have replaced this a while ago with a bubble column that would elevate us to the surface, but for the moment I've just been dropping down into a single source of water. And a fall of this distance would almost certainly kill us if we didn't have this water at the bottom. Even with feather falling, that's a pretty steep drop to take. But now, if we drop on down here and use the Elytra, we can actually control the speed of our descent. Obviously, if you angle yourself upwards or downwards, then that's going to potentially increase your speed, because then you'll either be falling or stalling. But if you simply angle yourself to look horizontally as you fall, you should be able to glide down at a safe enough speed that you won't take a ton of fall damage when you hit the bottom. And conveniently at the bottom, here is an XP farm that I can use to repair my Elytra from all of that flying. Oh my goodness, it's happening. It's raining. Okay, I need to get the trident out, and we can even use the trident to try and leap out of this hole. See how far we get. This is going to be absolutely incredible if we can do it. So let's activate the wings on the way up. Fly with the trident a couple more times. Man, it takes 4 pushes with the trident to get out of here, but now we're able to simply spam Riptide as we travel, and that is so much faster than traveling with fireworks. Oh my goodness. I would almost certainly die if I hit an object like this. It doesn't work in the snow, however, so
You
if you're
should
in
be in the
mountainous
backwoods,
biomes
sir.
like this, be aware. You'll need to get back out into a biome where it is raining in order to activate Riptide and travel.
I actually want to look up what his weaknesses are and stuff. interesting. Alright, so elemental attacks will be very important, it seems. Let's start with some setup.
To activate Riptide and travel this way again, but my word, that is fast. And you'll notice that the speed at which you travel is not going to affect the durability of the Elytra, it's simply going to be a case of it decreasing every few seconds. And that is absolutely wild amounts of speed. Oh my goodness, even turning in the air like that, I'm traveling so fast. I think at this point you need to be more aware of the durability of your Riptide Trident than you would the durability of your Elytra, although as I said, it's important to make sure that the terrain is loading in front of you so you know you're not going to hit a wall at such high speeds. Oh, so fun though. It's like being on a roller coaster. But the sun is setting and mobs are going to come out fairly soon, so I should probably go to sleep. Fun though the rain is, we're going to have to wait for it to occur another time. Now we've covered the majority of what you need to know about flying with Elytra, but interestingly enough, flying is not the only advantage that the Elytra conveys to you, because you'll notice if you're a spam jumper like I am, that you sometimes open up your Elytra and get this little kind of dip as you move. It sort of increases the bounce of your jump. If you're somebody like me who often jumps around just kind of holding down the spacebar to gain an additional burst of speed, which is a little bit faster than sprinting. It's why you see me do it so often in these videos. You'll notice that if you occasionally rhythmically press the jump button, you can gain a little extra momentum using Elytra, and that is actually slightly faster than just jumping and sprinting. Occasionally you'll hit a weird bit of landscape where you pause and jump upwards and lose a little bit of that momentum, but it's nice and easy to gain it back. So in that way, you can actually use your Elytra in a very subtle way as you're traveling, and while it might make a few people seasick, so apologies if it happens too much in these videos, it is a really neat way of getting some use of your Elytra without needing to boost yourself using fireworks. But the other noteworthy thing really comes back to what I was saying earlier about using the Elytra decreasing the height of our player hitbox, because using Elytra, it is possible to activate mid-air, crawl underneath the block. If you simply double tap jump so that you end up in a flying position, you'll end up crawling underneath a row of blocks that's moving on the ground. Now it is possible to do this without Elytra in a variety of ways. Hopefully I should be able to demonstrate here with this piston. So if I press this button when the piston is right in front of me, it's going to push me back. But if there is a block behind me like this when the piston activates, it will actually push me down into that crawling position, and I can quickly crawl under here before the piston retracts, and I was able to stand up again. You can also do this by using trapdoors, and it's a technique I haven't done much in the series so far. By opening up a trapdoor like this so it's placed vertically against the side of the block, and then standing in that block space and closing it on yourself, you'll be forced down into this crawling position. But it is possible to do that literally on the fly, as it were, by using your Elytra, simply by double tapping space and crawling underneath it. And that makes it possible to crawl into one block high spaces in caves and elsewhere in your base if you want to tinker with redstone contraptions that are tightly put together. You can ender pearl into some of those spaces as well, so that's another option if you don't have Elytra or want to do. It's a very convenient way of getting into those spaces. In fact, in the past, some players have even made one block high bases where you simply crawl around a series of tunnels to activate things like crafting, storage, your enchanting setup, stuff like that. If you want to crawl around some air vents, John McClane style, then you can do that using Elytra, or alternatively by using trapdoors and whatnot, but the Elytra makes it a little smoother. One final thing to bear in mind, which is a difference that I've noted between Bedrock and Java Edition. On Bedrock Edition, when you're flying around using your Elytra, you can tap jump while in the air again to disengage your Elytra, fall out of the air, and then simply tap jump again to re-engage them. And that's not possible on Java Edition. I'm spamming my jump button right now, I'm just hitting spacebar over and over again, and nothing is happening.
I was over-prepared for that one, actually.
Recently gained the ability to hot swap armor in and out of your equipment by right-clicking it from the hotbar. And that way, we can swap to my diamond armor mid-air, lose a little bit of height, and then swap back to the Elytra, reactivate the wings, and glide. Now that's a pretty dangerous trick to pull off, because if you swap to the armor and don't successfully swap back to your Elytra, you're going to be taking some fall damage. Unfortunately, Feather Falling and Protection is really helping me to avoid that. But if you want to stay a little bit maneuverable with your Elytra and really get into some advanced flying, that is one other technique you can consider. A little bit easier on Bedrock than it is on Java. On Java you've got to have the armor on your hotbar and everything, but it is worth knowing. And also having that hot swap is a really nice way of being able to swap in and out of a chest plate and elytra when you need a little bit more combat readiness. By having your elytra on your hotbar makes you ready for a quick getaway basically any time, so that's a fun thing to play around with. But folks, I think we tinkered with the elytra enough for today. Let me know if there's anything that you do with elytra that I've missed out in this video, and maybe we can do another video in future revising some of these techniques and seeing what else we've learned in the meantime. But that's about it from me. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. My name has been PixelRiffs. Don't forget to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you folks soon. Take care. Bye for now!
We're going to talk about E, the big famous constant E. It's one of the famous mathematical constants, one of the most important. It goes along with pi and, golden ratio and square root of 2. There are constants in maths that are the most important constants. And E is one of those constants. So E is the rational number, and it's equal to 2.7.
Interesting.
8281828 something. The problem with E is it's not defined by geometry.
Does that mean it can be really loud or that it's really fast? I'm gonna assume it means it's really fast, because breaking the sound barrier usually refers to speed, not sound.
It's not based on a shape.
It's such a strange name anyway. It means you're faster than sound, so you can't actually hear anything anymore when you're going that fast. That's what that means.
Why is it related to rate shape? So let's look at the original problem.
It's resistant, but at least not
We're going
immune.
to go back to the 17th century. This is Jacob Bernoulli, and he was interested in compound interest. So earning interest on your money. So imagine you've got £1 bank. You have a very generous bank, and they're going to offer you 100% interest every year. Wow, thanks a lot, bank. So 100% interest, so it means after 1 year, you'll have £2. You've earned £1 interest, and you've got your original pound, so you now have £2. What if I offered you instead 50% interest?
Really isn't all that powerful, huh?
Was that better or worse? Let's think about it. Okay, you're starting with £1, and then I'm going to offer you 50% interest.
Frost is weak to lightning,
So after 6 months,
flame is weak
you
to
now have
ice,
£1.50. And then you wait another
thunder
6
is weak to flame,
You're earning 50%
superconduction or something, I guess. So I guess this is the cycle of three elements for Etrian Odyssey. Fire, ice melts, ice extinguishes fire. Ice is good at conducting electricity, or so I've heard.
So 112, that's your interest. Then you're adding that onto the original pound.
And then thunder
So you do that, that's your
is
first one.
just makes fire stronger or something, I don't know.
Your third one, apply it again, and again. You obviously do that 12 times, and again, and again.
Thunder overpowers fire.
Pound 12, and you would get £2.61. So it's actually better. In
You know,
fact,
fire, ice, and lightning, it's cool and it's a classic trio of elements, but I really don't think it makes a lot of sense.
How much better is that? Okay, what I'm saying is you're earning 1/52 interest every week, and then after the end of the year, you've got 52 weeks, and you would have £2.60. It's getting better and better and better. In general, you might be able to see a pattern.
I'm more a fan of the trio being fire, water, and earth.
1/n.
Water extinguishes fire, fire burns the ground, and the ground absorbs water. I think it makes a little bit more sense. But I guess it's not as cool as lightning, and water isn't as cool as ice either. I mean, quite literally.
Every second, every nanosecond.
How does co-op work for this?
Every instant.
I'm quite curious, but I don't think I'll ever know.
Interest. What does that look like? That means I take this formula here, 1 plus 1/n to the n. I'm going to n. tend to, that would be continuous interest. What is that? What is that value? That's what Bernoulli wants to know. He didn't work out. He knew it was between 2 and 3. So 50 years later, Euler worked out. Euler, he works everything out.
Him or Gauss?
Yeah, it's either Euler or Gauss. Say Euler or Gauss.
There isn't much info. And fighting penguins, apparently. Kill in 5 turns or less for the unique drop. It's either Euler or Gauss. Say Euler or Gauss, you're probably going to be right. And the value was 2.71828182845 and so on. You're right. We're getting closer, aren't we? We're getting closer and closer to this value. But already we're quite close to it. If you did it forever, of course, you'd have this irrational number. Now, Euler called this E. He didn't name it after himself, although it is now known as the Euler constant. Why did he call it E then? It was just a letter. You know, he might have used A, B, C, D already for something else. Right, so you use the next one. It's a lovely coincidence. I fully believe that he's not being a jerk here, naming it after himself, but it's a lovely coincidence that it's E for Euler's number.
Would you have called it G if you discovered it?
I would not have called it G. No, I would have hoped somebody else would have called it G, and then I would have accepted that. Euler proved that this was irrational. He found a formula for E, which was a new formula, not this one here, a different formula, and it showed that it was irrational. I'll quickly show you that. He found that E was equal to 2 plus 1 over 1 plus 1 over 2 plus 1 over 1 plus 1 over 1 plus 1 over 4
I shouldn't have bothered summoning. I forgot Kirikaze does that.
1 over 1 plus 1 over 6, and this goes on forever. This is a fraction that goes on forever, continuous fraction, but you can see it goes on forever because there's a pattern, and that pattern does hold. We've got 2, 1, 1, 4, 1, 1, 6, 1, 1, 8. So you can see that pattern goes on forever. If the fraction goes on forever, it means it's an irrational number. If it didn't go on forever, it would terminate, and it would terminate as a fraction. And he also worked out the value for E. He did it up to 18 decimal places. So to do that, he had a different formula to do that. I'll show you that one. But this time, he worked out that E was equal to 1 plus 1 over 1 factorial, 1 over 2 factorial, 1 over 3 factorial, 1 over 4 factorial, and this is something that's going on forever. It's a nice formula. If you're happy with factorials, factorials means you're multiplying all the numbers up to that value. So if it was 4 factorial, 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. Okay, why is E
not wide?
It's because E is the natural language
Should I be worried?
And I'll show you why. Okay, let's draw a graph. Y equals e to the x. So we're taking powers. So over here at 0, this would cross at 1. So if you took a point on this graph, the value at that point is e to the power x.
I see.
And this is why it's important. The gradient at that point, the gradient of the curve at that point is e to the x. and the area under the curve, which means the area under the curve all the way down to minus infinity, is e to the x. And it's the only function that has that property. So it has the same value, gradient, and area at every point along the line. So at 1, the value is e, it's e to the power 1. The value is 2.718, the gradient is
Did it just
2.718,
heal?
and the area under the curve is 2.718. The reason this is important then, because
What a
it's unique in
dick.
having this property as well, becomes the natural language of calculus. Calculus is the maths of rate of change and growth and areas, maths like that. And if you're interested in those things, if you write it in terms of E, then the maths becomes much simpler. Because if you don't write it in terms of E, you get lots of nasty constants, and the maths is really messy. If you're trying to deliberately avoid using E, you're making it hard for yourself. It's the natural language of growth. And of course, E is famous for bringing together all the famous mathematical constants with this formula, Euler's formula, which is E to the I pi plus 1 equals 0. So there we have all the big mathematical constants in one formula brought together. We've got E, we've got I, square root of minus 1, and we've got pi, of course, we've got 1 and 0, and they bring them all together in one formula, which is as the most beautiful formula in mathematics. I've seen it so often now that I'm kind of changing
Sizzle!
Obviously on Number File we can make more videos than we'd otherwise be able to thanks to excellent sponsors. And today we'd like to thank the Great Courses Plus, which is a fabulous service. If you like Number File videos, you're really going to like this. They've got an incredible array of lessons, something like over 7,000 videos from world experts, top professors around the world on all sorts of subjects, from photography to paleontology to prime numbers. No matter what you're into, you're going to find something. What I've been looking at just recently on the site is paleontology and one of my favourite subjects, Egyptology. They've got some great videos on those. Now, plans on the Great Courses Plus start from $14.99 a month, but there's a special offer where you can go and get a whole month, unlimited access to all the videos for free. Go to thegreatcoursesplus.com/numberfile and have a 3-month access. Check it all out. If it's something you like, maybe you'll sign on for more. I think there's a good chance you will. There's a link on the screen, and also there's a link in the video description. Why not give it a click just to go and have a look? It's a great way of showing your support for Numberphile and showing the people at the Great Courses Plus that you came from here. Our thanks again to them for supporting this video.
Okay, I'm going to go for E, E,
Ah, they ran. Ooh. Why is it called data mining? You know, I should probably just max these two skills out, honestly. Do I even need anything else? Right, next up, Trade City of Ayaya. Or apparently I should start off with Ugarit. Whoa. I think I can do this. An instant kill move. Fun. No level recommendations either. How weird. Oh, what's that? I don't think there's much defense can do for me in the quest. Alright, this is the last thing I'm doing.
It's the one that kind of struggled the most. He didn't even do badly, still got 9 max outs, but it seemed like the tournament nerves, the in-person nerves were affecting him a little bit more than some of the other players.
Upon further analysis, though, it wasn't just the games Alex T whiffed on that had cost him max outs. Multiple times, he had also kept playing after he had already maxed, either just to practice or try and set a live world record. And on max out number 8, he managed to get all the way to level 54, which was incredibly impressive, but in the context of a qualifier, it was not only unnecessary, but actually detrimental, as it cost him a huge amount of time, and a lower seed would possibly be setting him up for an unfavorable bracket position relative to the other top contenders. The third qualifying slot was a bit of a breather. With the Big Six now done for the day, and my own qualifier not scheduled until slot 4, I was able to take a break from anxiously watching the main stage and take more of a look at some of the lesser-known players qualifying, as they had also been getting some cool achievements of their own throughout the day.
What just happened? 700k PB, let's go. Sweet! Okay.
There had also been an entire Tetris Effect Connected tournament happening on the side, featuring many of the top zone stars, such as Yoshimi and Kibibite. And of course, there was the staple of every Tetris event, Signature Gathering. Una and I got our Tetris cards filled up with the signatures of top players, which was the most common item to get signed. But in addition to cards, I ended up being asked to sign everything from t-shirts to CRT television casings. There was no break for the tireless record keepers, though, as they worked straight through lunch, entering more qual scores. And then it was time for qual session 4. This was it. I was finally up, and I had actually been given a seat on one of the 2 main stages. I would have my qualifier commentated by Van Dweller, the voice of Classic Tetris Monthly and one of the premier commentators in the scene. No pressure. The last time I had been on the main stage for a qualifier in 2019, I had bombed horribly, and I was determined not to let that happen again. As a barely passable DAS player, I wasn't going to be in the hunt for multiple max outs to make the gold bracket. Heck, I didn't even have a single max out yet at the time, but I did have an outside chance of the silver bracket. And at the end of qual session 3, the cutoff to make it in was only 677,000. I knew that was going to rise after the players in the 4th and 5th qualifying slots got their scores in, so I figured I needed at least 900,000 to be safe. I knew I just had to push the aggression hard when I had time to spare at the beginning, but the pieces just didn't seem to be working out for timely Tetrises. Early on in the qual, I had managed to take a game to level 27, and I went all in on a Tetris, but didn't get the long bar until I had destroyed my stack. This forced me to burn almost all my remaining lines before level 29, but I did manage to force across one last-ditch Tetris at the end to push my score to 748,000. I knew this score had very little chance of getting me in, but I still submitted it, as it was at least a new World Championships qualifying PB for me, just edging out my score from the previous year. But then, just 10 minutes later, I finally had the game I was looking for. After a bunch of clean Tetrises post-transition, I was at 750,000 on level 26. This was on pace for 900,000. I played it safe on a tough sequence, but once I burned down, I knew I had to push the aggression. I set up for a Tetris, but then burned to save the stack health right as a long bar came. Knowing I was running out of time, I went all in on a dirty Tetris on level 27, and skimmed just long enough to survive until a Tetris came. Then burned into level 28, and the display glitched out, displaying my 800k as over 1 million. I had time for 3 more Tetrises, which would put me over 900k. I got the first one, tried to set up for a second, but then got long bars at the wrong time. I gambled on a J dependency, but got an L instead, and then missed an S that I tried to put all the way to the left, and the board completely unraveled. I grimaced as I tried to figure out what to do with my remaining lines, but there weren't any good options. I burned into level 29 with 848,000. Relieved to have improved my score, but still having fallen short of my goal, and unsure if it was a good enough score to get me in. For most of the rest of the qual session, I tried to match the pace I had on that game, but couldn't replicate it. And then on this game, right as I had gotten myself into a pickle, I heard the fateful words from the judge. And it was the most unsettling time to hear that too, because with DAS, I couldn't get a long bar over 7 rows high on the left, so I would need a bailout long bar for the right to have any chance at surviving. I just managed to get one in time to give myself a chance to save the game, but it just wasn't in the cards.
Wish I could have ended on a better game than that, but
I I wasn't the most optimistic about my chances. But when I checked the leaderboard, I was completely shocked. I had somehow managed to qualify above legendary players from the past, such as Badboy, who finished 3rd in 2019, or Quaid, who finished 2nd in 2015. Quaid's best qualifying game really should have been a max out, but it ended prematurely when he went all in on one of his signature center wells. Although I'd had mixed feelings about my best game at the time, it turned out that it was finally the clutch qualifying performance I've been hoping to get for years. With 14 spots above the cutoff to spare, unless nearly everyone in qual slot 5 posted scores above me, it seemed like I was virtually guaranteed to make it in. It is day 2 of the Classic Tetris World Championships. The final qualifiers are happening this morning, and then the brackets start. I got very lucky yesterday. I had my best qual score ever, so I might actually make it into silver. We'll have to see by the end of this morning. And Una's going to qualify as well. The 5th qualifying slot players got started right away, and Una was one of them, as she had been offered the opportunity to compete in an extra available slot at the last minute. She qualified on a station next to Kim Moore, whose husband Jeff Moore had famously made the finals in 2016, who was coming off an unfortunate qualifying performance in 2021, where for the first time he had failed to make any of the brackets. But he was not about to let that happen again. Right at the beginning of his qualifier, Jeff stormed his way to a first max out with lines to spare. With a max, he would be guaranteed to at least play in the silver bracket. Chris Tagg, who had made the iconic original call of "Boom, Tetris for Jeff" on the commentary in 2016, was filming the moment on his cell phone. Incredibly, Jeff wasn't done. He rode a subsequent game all the way to 998,000 right before level 29. Being a DAS player, he wouldn't be able to play for any longer after that, and he only needed a double but perilously set up for a Tetris. You're the bar! For the first time since 2020, Jeff was back in the gold bracket. But Jeff just kept going. He got all the way within 1 Tetris of a 3rd max out right before level 29 again, but misdropped setting up the final Tetris. It seems like he had choked it. It's hard to describe just how insane it was to watch a veteran DAS player clutch up a max out with lines on 29. It was probably the most hyped moment of the event so far, and that was saying a lot. And unbelievably, Jeff got set up for another one. Yes, Ken? Jeff had put up one of the greatest performances by an old-school veteran ever, finishing well above many top tappers and rollers in the rankings. Meanwhile, Una finished up her qualifying session with a mid-400k score. Now that the scores were finalized, I went to go check the leaderboard one more time. Oh my gosh, 70th seed. I finally made it after 5 years. I'm in the bracket. You did? The best part was I wasn't celebrating alone. Jonesy, who had qualified right next to me on stage and had gotten 804,000, had managed to make it in as the very last seed for silver. Jonesy, you made it in! Yeah. 80th seed! Come on, my team. How am I playing? So I finally found out. I have made the silver bracket. I made it into a bracket for the first time after 5 years of trying. And my first round opponent is Terry Crispin. I didn't get that. Cool. I'm glad. I hope you ruin your day. I'm just kidding. Terry was actually one of the very first players I had remembered watching when I first found the scene from videos of the 2015 World Championships. So it was going to be an incredible honor to play him. The main stage then filled up with everyone in the gold brackets to receive their prize Tetris cards and continue the annual tradition of a group picture. It was almost entirely younger people who had started playing more recently, and then Jeff, the only representative who had played in a World Championships event before 2019.
The old dog, or whatever they call it.
Say 3, 2, 1, Tetris!
And after years of waiting, I finally had the opportunity to be part of the ceremony as well. I got to put my name on the annual CTWC banner that all the bracket participants would sign and stand in the silver bracket photo. And then there was a surprise announcement. Tournament co-founder Vince Clemente presented the first Lifetime Achievement Award. Boom! Trophy for Tay! You might call me man, surprise. Oh my goodness.
Thank you so much for this honor. I never thought I'd have one of these. The thing that brings me the most happiness is the CTWC and the Classic Tetris community, because I get to see a little bit of the joy that I felt in all of you. You know, when I think back to the NWC and Robin Mahara and Thor Ackerland and hanging out and having my first gaming bros, they're still my best friends in the whole wide world. And they set the stage for what I did for the rest of my life. This world is crazy, but we've got each other, and if we could share great things that we're happy about and are excited about, and we'd love to cheer each other on for, then that's what I'm going to be fighting for too. And the thing that I want to do, for as long as I can do it, is to boom the Tetris for all of you here at CTWC 2022. It is Saturday, and it is time for brackets!
I think it's time.
All right, let's go. Everybody together with me. 3, 2, 1. Tetris!
And immediately, the games did not disappoint. The players were now on modified ROMs that could go above 1 million points, and the goal was simple: score more than your opponent before the game ends. The matches were best of 5, so the first to 3 victories advances to the next round. The rolling inventor Cheese was facing off against a DAS player turned roller Bird Wizard, who had barely squeaked into the gold bracket at 48th seed and was a huge underdog. But incredibly, he held his own, going back and forth with Cheese with some games already breaking the million-point barrier, until they were all tied up at 2 games apiece. The final game will be winner takes all. Bird Wizard had built up a massive 180,000 point lead by the transition to level 29, and Cheese would need to use the power of his technique to play deep past level 29 to stay alive in the tournament. Bird Wizard started to falter on level 31 as Cheese threw down a massive center wall Tetris to cut into the lead, but after Bird topped out, Cheese had a crucial misflip.
The concentration level has to be at its peak. There's a big drop. Cheese is gonna take the lead! Problem. Can't get him over. He's out of it! Takes the match! I can't believe it! Cheese has been eliminated! Oh my goodness!
Somehow, Bird Wizard had managed to defeat Cheese with Cheese's own technique. The DAS players who had stuck with DAS weren't faring so well, though. After making it into the gold bracket, Sharky had an unfortunate first-round exit against the roller Jordan after just 4 games, where he got into a situation where he couldn't burn and got drowned on the long bars. After getting the incredible 4 max-outs in qualifying, Jeff couldn't quite manage to get any max-outs in his first-round match against Oscar, one of the players from Team Mexico, and 3 games later, Oscar had advanced. But there was a newer DAS player named Tugi who'd come all the way from Austria, having never been to Portland before. The European Tetris scene was known for their playful chants and taunts, and sure enough, they started up when Tugi took the stage.
It sounds like we have one 2B supporter, and the rest of the crowd is not quite on.
Tugi's first match was against the Canadian roller Ella, and after losing the first 2 games, things looked pretty dire. He would need 3 straight wins to advance now. In Game 3, Tugi was 100,000 points behind, and it looked like it would be the end as his board snaked up to the top of the screen, but he managed to get a long bar over at the last possible moment. Shortly afterwards, Ella topped out after a battle at the top of the screen, and suddenly Tugi had a chance. But the hard limit of level 29 was coming up fast.
1,800 points, and that
And a triple will
doesn't take
do
the
it.
triple. Passes up the triple.
One more line will do it.
And
There it is!
boom! Tetris Futsugi completing the chase down with a Tetris.
After a miracle Game 3 win, Tugi turned up the heat, throwing up a max out in Game 4.
And there it is, max out for Tugi!
Ella was so far behind that she couldn't make up the deficit past level 29, even with rolling.
Ella in trouble.
Yes.
We might be looking at a decider, but still, no, not able to quite get it.
Wow!
And what a
Tugi
dominant
taking
game by
it around.
Tugi.
Yeah, dominant round Futsugi from a DAS player versus a roller.
And then in a winner-takes-all Game 5, the unthinkable happened.
Long bar is kind of starting to become
Oh,
necessary.
that left side. It's going to be really tough to get anything over there.
Long bar
He's
needs to
a
come
long
in.
bar, and
We have an offset.
DAS has beaten rolling. Tugi is going to advance, eliminating Ella. What an upset, like you just said.
Tugi was the only DAS player in the gold bracket to advance past the first round.
Yikes.
But unfortunately, he had none other than Dog playing Tetris up next. He did his best, but Dog easily took the set in 3 games.
Tugi's gonna top out at 934. So Dog in good for 8 number 3, and the 2-time world champion advances to the top 16.
Meanwhile, over the silver bracket, there was also plenty of action going on. These matches were even quicker, as instead of best of 5s, they were best of 3s.
Scout is taking this moment in. This will end up in a video someday.
Jonesy, the guy who had slipped in at the final seed, unfortunately had his tournament run end fairly quickly, losing in the first round to Rick. But some of the underperformers in the qualifying stage found some redemption in the brackets. Bathboy faced off against Matt Martin in the first round. Incredibly, this was a rematch from 3 years prior when they had faced off in the top 8 of the 2019 World Championships. And just like in 2019, Bathboy was able to advance again in a decider. Quaid was facing off first round against the Roller Reds, known for his parody channel Classic Tetris News, and Quaid didn't seem to have high hopes of winning. And sure enough, Quaid didn't get off to a great start, topping out before the transition, with Reds just needing a small chase down to take it. But then a crucial misdrop happened at just the wrong time for Reds.
Oh! That's a bit of a idea. That could be it. That could be it. So just these 3,000 points. It is easy. Reds is gonna hang it real big. Big slam dunk.
In Game 2, Reds had a game malfunction, so the game was voided.
Oh, I win. Yeah. I was crushing.
Quaid topped out right away when the game was replayed, evening up the set. Quaid got Reds to agree to play on the starting seed number 420, and he would end up taking the decider to advance. And then it was time for my matchup. I walked onto the stage. The lights, the crowd, and everything I had thought about all these years was right in front of me.
3, 2, 1, Tetris!
The biggest thing I wanted to avoid was stumbling out of the gates. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. I played out all the fundamentals of competitive Tetris as best I could. Clean right wells for Tetrises, safe digs out of messes. It was all going according to plan.
Great looking, my scout. Look at this advanced strats. That's what I want to see. Somebody look behind for the score. Get the 180-degree deck turn.
And then, unfortunately, I had an early dash load at the worst possible time, right before the level 19 transition. I needed to clean up the mess fast, but couldn't quite get things in order before the speed change happened. And then on a T-piece that probably should have gone to the right, I tried placing it on the left and whiffed on getting it over. This wasn't immediately fatal, as I had the chance to dig out of it, but the increased speed meant there was little margin for error. And after clutching a long bar to the left, I erroneously threw a J to the left instead of placing it in the center and shut off access to the leftmost column, ending the game.
Scout gets something left. He can't get it left. It's going to take game 1.
I would need a win in Game 2 to stay alive. But right at the beginning, it seemed like I would get the lucky break I needed. Terry had a tough luck misdrop, which happens occasionally, but it quickly turned disastrous after he misdropped again on top of it. He clutched up a tuck into Tetris to avoid imminent death, but his board was going to be in a state of disarray for quite some time.
Answering a B-type joke. Mount's ahead by 40,000. Really set his lead, and Terry is...
I keep forgetting that I should be telling my...
He's gonna burn us down.
I was able to use the opportunity to build up a huge lead, playing carefully this time and coasting safely into the level 19 transition. But right at the most pivotal point of the game, the internet started to sputter out on the stream. Fortunately, Una was recording the whole match on her phone, so I could see what happened. Since I had a huge lead, I wanted to minimize risk, so I was taking burns every time I could instead of waiting out for Tetrises. But after nearly 2 levels of this, I didn't want to give Terry an easy path to catch up. So I finally committed to a Tetris setup and then got stuck in a tough spot. I got a Z piece when I really could have used an S for the left, and then got a square. I really didn't want to put it on the right as it would shut off all my safety burns, and in a moment of indecision, I fumbled on putting it fully to the left, tried taking the burns, and got the right column open, but this was ugly. I would need a long bar to survive. Fortunately, I got one, but then my finger missed the button, and the bar didn't rotate. Oof. Now, I wasn't the first player to top out like this in the World Championships. Corey on had infamously gotten eliminated on a misflipped long bar in 2017, a year where he was expected to be a top contender to win it all. But man, this was one of the most unexpected ways I thought I would go out. 99% of the time I'd have my games at home end on missing getting a long bar far enough over, not on missing the rotation. But that's Tetris for you. Terry was still behind in the score, but of course he was a pro, and had plenty of time to chase it down, even setting up a Tetris to win it.
Although at first I would have preferred not to go on like that. I've gone on and didn't have any early top-outs. Got to have some games that lasted a while. Never actually been eliminated live in person by a chase down. So it was cool actually to be in the driver's seat, you know, have a lead. The other person has to earn it. So glad the two I got to advance, and I'll be rooting for them later in the silver bracket.
Even though the match didn't go the way I'd hoped, the thing I find nice about the way Classic Tetris matches work is they really do facilitate an environment of good sportsmanship. Like Terry hadn't actually ruined my day by pulling some cheap move or dirty trick on me. We were both completely in charge of our own games, which created a dynamic where everybody could kind of independently root for each other to do their best.
Honestly, I'm glad to yes. I'm completely better for you. I saw that for I seriously love the videos that are Thank you so much.
Unfortunately, Terry had to face the phenom Bat Boy the very next round, and that would be the end of his run.
We'll go to 29 to Terry at 781. Kick on it for the back. Whoa! 848 to Star King.
When I went back to go watch more gold bracket matches, I ended up sitting in front of Pollo, who was intensely focused on Noe's match on stage as the hopes of Team Mexico lied with him. Pollo had been eliminated by DDT in the silver brackets, and after beating Jeff, Oscar had been taken out by the roller Tristop in the next round. So Noe was the last of the trio of Mexican players to still be in the brackets. And he was facing none other than Verb Wizard, the player who'd upset Cheese. But game 1 ended prematurely for Verb after a dig sequence that proved deadly after a dead drop of a T-piece. And in game 2, an early top-out happened again.
Hypebeast needs the ball. Hypebeast doesn't come in. Early top-out from Verb again.
Oh, man.
Noe takes game number 2.
Whatever. It's tech-based anyway, so Umag can't deal as much damage with it.
Advancing, but needed one more game, and it came down to the wire. With both players above 1,000,000 points, level 29 was looming, and both of them were trying to hold out for one last Tetris that didn't seem to come.
Now we holding out for this last Tetris before 29, and this board is starting to get dangerous, and we're running into a draw, and now